Aquatics video. Today we're doing the smallest Aquascape. For this Aquascape I used this small bag of sand, well, and a little bit more sand. I used a ruler to measure things to make sure everything was right, in the right place. Tweezers, very difficult to get hands in there. And of course, lots of pebbles. Oh, nearly forgot the jar, the most important part. With everything ready, let's get started. The plan is simple for a simple central island Aquascape. Started off with a simple, very small bag of sand, just to fill the bottom, which I then decided wasn't quite enough, so I added a little bit more. This is all leftover sand from the previous Aquascape in my 10-gallon. I then thought, well, why not? Just a little bit more. More sand equals more height, and with more height in the aquarium, you're able to get a more dramatic feeling with the higher and lower ground. Now it's time for the small pebbles which I chose to use in this Aquascape. Now because the Aquascape is so small, you need quite detailed rocks. This is why I went for some fossils, because they've got lots of different lines and marks in them. This one might more recognise as a fossil. It's very intricate in its different shapes, and this is the holes in the rock. The more detail in this, the better. You come to flattening down the sand, but this isn't quite the right tool as it was so small. This is better. This Aquascape will just be a hardscape Aquascape, instead of adding plants, as it's quite a small opening at the top. If you want to try this yourself, just find any old jar, just make sure it's cleaned out. And if you want to see my previous ones, as it is one of my favourite things to do, I've even done a planted one. I'll leave it in the card above. Adding the rocks is a very delicate thing to do, especially with tweezers. It's very difficult to get the right angles, and try not to nudge or annoy any of the other rocks. This really is a delicate job. In fact, I've had to speed this up, by ×4 in fact. Or even though it looks like I'm moving at quite a slow pace, well, regular pace, it is quite a slow and delicate job. So if you need to try this at home, which I do recommend, just bear this in mind. Plus, whenever you're doing a hardscape for any aquarium, it's always important to take your time anyway. As you can see now, I'm finding it quite difficult to use these tweezers and my hands to try and get the rocks into the right position at the right heights. This is why it's important to take your time and correct things. I then also use the brush to flatten out the sand at the front and move it closer to the back to add more support for the rocks. I felt as if something was missing from the hardscape. There was gaps in places, and I found out that wood would probably work quite well, especially here in the centre, going into the gaps, making it go higher and further. So I went off into the garden in the search for wood, and I found these quite small pieces, although recently cut off, so it was quite young. As you can tell, this is still very green, apart from one part which isn't, which I'm going to try and cut off now. In the end, I resorted to these pieces, and then broke them up a little bit smaller. It was actually worked quite well. The overall idea was to get sort of island feel, with pieces going up and down in more of a curved shape. After a sip of my tea, it was now time to place the wood inside the jar. I was quite happy with the composition overall, as it did have quite a few high points. And now with the wood, I'll be able to reach further and gradually make the audience's eyes go towards the rocks, to the centre. And at last it was done. Try this for yourself, it's really good fun. I really do recommend doing these small scapes. Don't forget to like this video and also subscribe while you're there. Also, tell me your thoughts of this in the comments section down below. Always love to hear from you. Oh, and that happened too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for some more aquarium fun.